everyone. Welcome to this interview with Chantelle from Aquarious Rising. She comes all the way from South Africa and has been running the platform for years. I got to be a guest on the show, and the topic tended towards forgiveness. Now, it's an individual choice for survivors, but it may be worth a look at because it does offer some ideas and insights into what that means for all of us. Enjoy.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good beautiful everything. I'm here with the beautiful Gloria Masters, all the way from New Zealand. Welcome, Gloria. And I know that it's Monday night for you and it's Tuesday morning for me. And we were just chatting off air a little bit about these amazing time differences, and somehow we all seem to connect with each other. I think you
Yeah.
guys are about 10 hours ahead. We've got the Australians somewhere between 6 and 9 hours behind us, and ahead of us. Americans 6 to 9 hours behind. And us for South Africa, well, we just sit on one solid little timeline. Very happy to have connected. Good morning. How are you, beautiful lady? Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, Chantelle, and spend time with you and just hang out and talk about the real
Absolutely.
stuff in the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. Gosh, I think it's so refreshing. And it's not, I often think to myself, especially during these times, these past 2 years, it's just so amazing to have met so many people, because I think myself, having been born slightly different, always felt like an outsider looking in type thing.
Yeah.
And not really having that essence connection with so many people. And as I've experienced this more and more, the last 2 years, meeting people like yourself who've really been to the depths of hell. And I say
Yeah.
this a lot, and I have so much respect for you men and women who've come out of that horrific situation, SRA, child trafficking, I mean, abuse from family. It's just the worst kind of betrayal over and over and over again. And here you are, healed, wanting to just share your light with the world. And for me, that takes a lot. And it's so good to actually meet people like yourself. And even though we can sit and talk crap for an hour, it has to have nothing to do with anything that's relevant to this. We can be talking about the neighbor's dog, but there's a kind of an essence and understanding that we connect on. And I think for me, that's so important, because I'm not one who's easily found people over the years that I connect with. I mean, I definitely have my good friends, and we've certainly found each other, but it's beautiful to, and not just our guests. I mean, we have amazing viewers, and just finding our tribe. So again, guys, I know I gush on about this every so often, and I'm gushing, and I'm proud, and I'm gushing loud and proud today, and I'm happy to be doing it. So, Gloria, you have quite an interesting tale to tell as well, and I want to maybe just go back to the beginning. And I know that so many stories that we hear from people like yourself are similar, have a similar vein, taken in by your parents into the system, having experienced horrific abuse from your parents from a young age. And what I saw and what I read, you were 4.5 years old before your dad raped you the first time, and you had your first disassociation, and you talk about riding the unicorn or visiting your unicorn, which I'd love to talk about that, because as well, that for me is very interesting to see how the children disassociate from their bodies when they're having these horrors forced upon them, that sort of thing. So I'd like to maybe, take us to the beginning, and you can just share with us what you're comfortable sharing. How did you get in? What happened? Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Okay, cool. Strap in for the ride. So, hello, fabulous ones watching, and to all the beautiful survivors out there. Hello from me to you. Look, it's a horror story. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was born into a family, and I think fit for purpose. So, child sex trafficking was what I was forced to do from the age I was, from a small toddler actually. I was conditioned and sexualized and abused by my father, his extended family and friends, and then at the age of 5.5, my grandmother, his mother, and one of his sisters were paid a commission to train me in the art of seduction.
Who paid them?
My father, because I was being trafficked, and so he got paid a lot of money for men to rape me and abuse me.
Okay, so your father was paying your mother or your grandmother, sorry, and
No, his mother and one of his sisters to teach
his
me
sister.
how to be his sister, and his mother were paid a commission by my father to teach me how to be the best child prostitute I could be.
My gosh. Wow. Okay. That's just insane. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah.
So that from the age of 6, I was trafficked out of my grandmother's front parlour, they called it back then. And I know these were very influential, high-ranking men, because I remember peeking out of the window one day and seeing a black car with flags on either side of the window and bodyguards. So I am unable to name who these political people were, but I know they were fairly high up in our government back then to have bodyguards and a political vehicle like that. The trafficking was extended and grew over time, and I made my father so much money, he imported one of the first Pontiac vehicles into New Zealand in 1968. So, Chantelle, this, it beggars belief, but the reality is I lived it. And the groups he trafficked me to included the Freemasons. So they're well known in the survivor community, actually, because they're very instrumental in all of this. Also to gangs. I remember one weekend being trafficked to a gang and being so badly beaten, I couldn't see my face. My eyes were swollen shut and my face was so...
So when you say you were trafficked to gangs,
Yes.
firstly, how old were you when this was happening?
Well, remember, I was trained from the age of 5.5.
Yeah.
So from the age of 6 is when the serious money started getting made.
So from the age of 6, your father was trafficking you to gangs.
Yes, and from the age of 11, I was taken to our red light district in Auckland and leased out of the top room, one of the top in the top floor, to men. So I was basically tied to the bed, and men would come in and abuse me there. This is huge, Chantelle. I'm very lucky to be alive. I'm not going to understate that. But to me, the real story is the power of the human spirit actually to overcome, and I was able to
Wow.
overcome and heal. But that's only there's so much that happened. I escaped at 16 because I was no longer required to see my father. My parents had separated at the age of 11, and the very worst time in my life was my mother left me there with him and my brother, and those 18 months were the very worst of my life. Yeah, so look, lots and lots have or has happened. It's taken me decades and decades to heal from this, as you could imagine. But I now am, and I'm able to give back, and I'm able to help
Forward,
other
yeah.
survivors, which is beautiful to me.
Absolutely. And I think, as I always say, you know, when I speak to someone like yourself, it's so incredible to see that, no doubt, you know, you've had a sacred contract with the source creator, God, the divine, whatever you choose to call it, to go through that and come out and be a light for
Yes,
those on the other side.
yeah,
However, in our human experience, I mean, spiritually, we understand the spirit is all knowing, all love. In our human experience, that's a heck of a thing to sometimes integrate and live, especially when you've been through what you've been through. When I was reading your little synopsis as well, you spoke a lot about one of the things that stood out to me was you experienced a lot of mental health issues or mental trauma, obviously, in your life since then. Maybe you can explain to us what you mean by that. How did that affect you? I know that obviously these things affect everyone individually and in their unique way. How did that affect you? How did that affect you in your life moving forward? When you say you escaped at the age of 16, how did you survive after that?
well, it was a total shit show, to be fair. There were there was no way I was functioning at all well. So you know, keep in mind I'd been heavily drugged through a lot of the trafficking and a lot of the abuse. Oh, and I also starred in well over 100 pornographic movies, which the police tell me they think are in the States. But look, there was a great deal of money that changed hands, and my mental health was, well, it was many things really. I had this false self I would put on. So, you know, the old masked balls where you put on a mask.
Mhm.
I was someone, it was like I was acting in my life, I wasn't living my life. There was such a disconnect between how I felt and what I portrayed. And I think partly because instinctively as children, we know what is right and what feels right. And if we cannot follow that, we then end up having this real disconnect on the inside. So I really developed this highly, you know, charming false self, but it was at such a cost. And it took me decades actually to heal from all of this, because if you think there's 16 years of it, man, when the recall hit, it floored me. And had I not been a mother, I would not be alive today. Um,
Yeah,
so, you know,
I can
yeah,
well imagine.
yeah.
When did you start retrieving memories? When did you start, you know, when did your programming start breaking down, and when did you start retrieving your memories?
It was interesting, when I was 32 and a mother myself. So that's when it all started hitting. And of course, I didn't want to face in. Would you want to face into that horror? I kept as distracted and busy and kind of, as far away from it as I could, because I knew something was coming for me and it was flippin' scary. So
did you have any memories up until that time of any form of abuse or SRA, any kind of trafficking? What was your childhood blocked out? How did you experience that?
yeah, so apparently, and I can't remember this, but a friend I went to school with told me that when we were at intermediate together, so remember that was the age I was left with my father, I told her that I was going to be drinking and playing with men over the weekend. And she thought it was quite funny because I seemed very hyper about it. I don't recall saying that, but we're still friends today. And she did remind me that I'd said that to her. And also when I was 18, I'd shared with a friend as well. But I don't remember that I did that either. But, I'm so glad you talked about dissociation earlier, and for your survivors out there, they'll know what this is. It's too dangerous and too hard for us to stay in our body while all that happens, so we leave. Yeah, we leave. Our mind protects us from the trauma. And the easiest way I can give you an example of that is, you imagine having a bad car accident. You're not going to remember that for a little while because your mind is trying to protect you from more trauma. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
child sexual abuse is like that. We dissociate. Now, unfortunately for us as adult survivors, dissociation is something that's quite hard for us to then try and leave behind. And yeah, I mean, there's many there's layers upon layers of impact that occurs, and it takes a lot of courage actually to speak out. And I guess I'm so grateful that I can now, and I'm trying to hold a light for other survivors, because I know how hard it is, and I know how terrible they feel. And I don't want anyone to feel they ever have to say a word until they feel ready. So in the meantime, I'm never going to stop talking about this, Chantelle. I'm never going to stop.
Please don't.
No.
Please don't, because I really think that it's so important that, stories like yours definitely get shared, and especially the healing aspect of it. And I see you've now got a podcast called Handing Back the Shame. Tell us
Handing
a little
the
bit
shame
about
back.
that.
Yeah, I love it. So this is 100% dedicated to adult survivors of child sexual abuse. Every week I interview a survivor on the show, and their story may just resonate with some of the audience. There might be similarities, or they might feel some hope through something that survivor tried. I also post on the show tips for supporting survivors, because sometimes people don't know how to support us and they just make us feel worse. That's
actually very interesting, and I like that. I like that idea, because I think what I've recognized, especially coming in, I mean, I've also shared this story before, but I came in here as a healer. I've never in my life had any kind of abuse. I've never had a man try to inappropriately touch me. My father was the 6'6" gentle giant. I adored him. He adored us. My parents were married for 56 years before he passed away in 2014. So I don't have any of that. So us coming in, but as a healer, I understand there are obviously lots of things to look out for. And I must say, looking back, there are definitely people I've worked with that have been through similar stuff and have not known it. I did
Yes.
not know what I was dealing with until I started listening to these stories more and more. But thank God, somehow, I don't know how, but God has a way of allowing me to work with people in very tricky situations. I just hand it over and somehow it works in that moment. But I think what is very important for us, because we are now moving from this horrible revelation of the pedophilia and everything that has been happening in our world for so long. And most people have been completely oblivious to what's been going on, myself included, you know, and especially to the lengths and the depravity which exists. So I think it's very important what you're saying there, that how do we, as people that haven't experienced that, just support people that have? And it's such a fine line, because I'm a great believer in, we can't take, as an individual personally, I cannot take responsibility for your path, okay, and what you've experienced. But I can still have enough compassion and integrity to understand what it is that you've been through and assist where I can, even though I haven't been through that, you know, and not be completely cognitive dissonant from that experience. You understand what I'm saying? So it really is about learning how to be respectful, and also for survivors to understand that many people don't know what you guys have been through. So what is normal for you is certainly not normal for us. And to understand that even though someone can come across as being a little bit blunt or unfeeling, it's not necessarily their intention, right? So
No.
I think this is such an important aspect. And maybe you can share with us more about that from your perspective. Give us some ideas.
Yeah.
How do we find our way together, and how do we assist each other in this
Yes.
journey?
I love it. Thank you. Because I think, you know, love for humanity, and we are all one. And I think it's really important we respect and value each other. So, for instance, a tip I just posted tonight was on how to support your survivor with the topic of forgiveness. And my kind of my words to the audience was this: your survivor is no bigger or less a person if they forgive or they don't. And what we must always know is that as children, we never had a choice. As adults, we do. Let your survivor choose. How will they know if it is ever time for them to forgive? Because they come up with it, they start to talk about it. And I think what well-meaning friends and family members do is they say, well, look, you should forgive because it's only you it's hurting. Please never say that. You will not be able to understand what that was like for the survivor. We must, a key point for survivors when you're supporting us is please ask what we think and what we want, because the choice was always stolen. We never
Yeah.
had the choice. So I think that's tip number one. Yeah. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think, you know, the greatest gift that God has given us is free will and choice, right?
Yes.
So to have that choice taken away at such an early time, and the betrayal
Yeah.
that must, you know, I mean, I would imagine, you know, you were 4.5 years old before your dad first raped you. Horrible.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and you were cognitive enough to know the betrayal, to understand the betrayal, intelligent enough. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just like a baby where you don't quite know what's going on, but you actually had cognizance to understand it was him, and the betrayal. And then after that, him pimping you out, basically, the betrayal around that is massive, right?
Oh, it's huge. And look, for a lot of survivors, it won't be to anything like to that extreme. But that's another point to raise. Um, it doesn't matter whether it was a one-off situation. The point is, it changes the trajectory of our lives, because
Absolutely.
who we thought we were or how we thought we were going to be is suddenly no longer. And we have to struggle to find a way. And the other huge thing about this is, because it begins in silence, secrecy is then ensured through the abuser either threatening us or threatening our family or pets, or even more confusing, telling us, oh, it's because you're so special to me that I do this. The shame is then ensured because, as children, and you alluded to this earlier, we know, we sense what's right and what's wrong. For a survivor to speak out is like me saying to you, abseil off that very high cliff. Why? Because we've been conditioned all our lives to shut up, never speak, bad things happen if you do, you won't be believed. Where there's an adult and a child is not usually, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Wow.
there's so much, there's layers upon layers upon layers, Chantelle, and I'm really loath to say to a survivor, you need to find your voice. No, you don't need to speak about it. But you know what? Do a painting class or do a martial arts class and release it out of your head. That's all.
Yeah,
We don't need to pressure people or have them feel less than because they're not quite there. It's huge and it's fearful and it's shame filled. I can
absolutely.
remember seeing my father when I was in my late 20s at a family wedding. Chantelle and survivors out there, I felt like I was the child again. I immediately lost all my power, my confidence, my courage. I became the child again, because when you're conditioned, and you talked about mind control or earlier, to actually break away from that is so challenging and so hard. So, I'm not surprised that people really struggle, and we must just love our survivors, and sometimes just sitting with them is the most powerful thing you can do.
I think it's that whole sense of just being heard and not judged that I think would be really beneficial. I think all of us need to be heard no matter what. But I think this kind of stuff has been made so unbelievable for so long. And anyone who's come out in the past to talk about this has been made to feel like they're crazy, right? They don't believe what you're talking about. I mean, when you're talking about presidents
Yes.
and police chiefs and politicians and movie actors and actresses all involved, it's horrific. To think that this is really all these well-respected people and my parents, who's going to believe me? Because they really do know how to manipulate you and make you feel like you are nothing. And that's the
Well,
bottom line.
yeah, and one of the things that happens, and it happens to us consistently from childhood up, is we are Darvoed. It's a thing. D, people deny it happened. A, we are then accused. R, the reverse happens. The V, victim, becomes the O, offender. The way they
Yeah,
do it, target us. Try and put suspicion around our mental health and stability, or
exactly.
you've always been the one that has to, attention. So you've always been the naughty one. You see, it's very clever and strategic, but the whole aim is to shut us down and shut us up. So it's really important that we just allow what needs to emerge and know that we stand beside. We stand beside our survivors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's so important, and it's lovely to see more and more people standing up and speaking up, and it really is so healing. And as you say, people have got to do that in their own time. But it's
Yeah.
beautiful to see more and more people. I mean, I know when we started our channel 2 years ago now,
Yes.
we started the Overcomer series, where we opened up as well the platform for overcomers who've been in the system and who've been through this horrific abuse to tell their stories. And I want to tell you, it was one of the most healing. And I think we were one of the first people doing it, if not the first, that we actually opened up the platform for that. And it was amazing how many people came forward,
Wow.
shared, told their stories, and just really have been on this amazing path of meeting other. I mean, and it's just so incredible to see, even on Facebook, lots of different social media platforms, Telegram, etc. You're seeing these groups, these survivor groups, these overcomer groups, people talking, people sharing. My heart breaks when I hear a lot of what, of course, has gone on, and each person's story is so individual and so personal. But it's so nice to know that now people who've been in a similar situation can talk and share and heal together. In the past, I don't think that was available, right? The group healing, it was like you on your own fighting the world. And because your voice was this single voice in the sea of nonsense being beaten down, and as you say, you become the victim, you become shamed. You made to be the liar, you made to be the crazy one. You get locked away in some mental asylum when you are talking. So it really, really is good to see what you guys, the results of everyone speaking up. Yeah.
I think, though, that there's also, we have to accept this exists. So for survivors, we carry the shame. The shame takes the gold medal every time. We carry that through our lives. It's a big part of who we are. But also what's complicit in that is no one wants to talk about child sexual abuse. Why? Because it's uncomfortable and it's not a nice topic. So what people don't realize, and beautiful people like you, Chantelle, may not have realized, is all it does is gives a free pass to those pedophiles, and they're rubbing their hands with glee because no one wants to talk about it. Now, just so
Exactly.
you know, the statistics have increased. So you would think that because people like me and other guests you've had on your show are talking about it, that this would actually signify that this is lessening throughout the world. No, this is the biggest industry there is. This is $1 trillion industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that, and pretty much because of the Luciferian culture, because that obviously that's what their dark lord requires, right? Is that they do the sacrifices and the rituals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I am very well aware of the plus minus 8 million registered children that go missing every year, and that's not to mention the ones that are in the breeder programs and stuff like that. But I'm interested, a little bit shocked, because I actually have been thinking about lately, what have the stats dropped in the last 2 years, especially when it comes to this. And what you're saying now, it's increasing, right?
Yep. Yep.
Couldn't
Yep.
that be because of the desperation, though? I mean, if you think about what's going on, this horrific underground system of theirs is now being revealed. And whether it's true or not that we're hearing the dams are being blown up and lots of children being rescued, there's always a question mark as to whether that's happening. Lots of people have lots of questions around that. Okay, let's say, for example, that is true. Wouldn't it be in their natural way to then grab as many kids as what they can at the last sort of like the end time, you know what I'm saying? Just because they're about to be revealed. Do you think that it's gone up because there are several acts of desperation being committed right now across the world? I'd like your opinion on that.
I think there's many layers to this, and you're talking about specific groups. So you're talking about satanic ritual abuse, the Satanists, and all of that. I'm talking about all the pedophilia. So I'm talking about the guy down the street who's got a collection of child pornography, who then decides to act on that. And we know that for pedophiles, they have a minimum of 15 to 25 victims, usually, over the course of their life. This has become a more prevalent thing throughout our world. This is not just the Satanists, this is everywhere. It was in the late 80s, I believe, in the UK, before the PIE exchange, or the PIE was shut down. Do you know what that is? The Pedophile Information Exchange
Yes.
was removed. That was in the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but wasn't that in Australia? Wasn't Australia one of the heads or main operators within the PIE? I just seem to recall we were doing it.
I just know in the UK it was a registered company or group, and freely available. And you know, there are many of us across the world who are just trying to spotlight all of this. But the point is, it's not going away. The numbers are growing, and there's a lot of money being made. And if you also think about the sexualization of children, you know, just watch any Disney movie.
Well, we know what Disney's up to. I mean, really, that's, you know, we've done enough research to know that Disneyland, in fact, Disneyland is, I don't know if you know this, is actually, it's the replica of Neuschwanstein. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That castle in Germany, which is where the Mothers of Darkness do their ceremonies and rituals and things, it's known for that. Yeah. So Disneyland, and with the tunnels underneath, I mean, Walt Disney was a 33rd degree Mason. You know, so we know that that's a haven for the pedos and all of these things. So, and I mean, we just got to look now, especially we go back to watching these Disney movies, and you're now looking for, it is horrific. It is horrific what they've been subjecting us to. I mean, I would have been around in those days. I mean, although we didn't have TV, you know, but I remember watching cartoons and stuff from wherever, I'm not sure. But, you know, what our kids have been subjected to, it is incredibly disturbing. All the subliminal programming and stuff like that. Yes, it's been going on for a long time. Yeah. And it's just so good to know that we are actually getting out of it now.
I interviewed Annika Lucas recently on the channel. So you may have heard of her from Belgium. Yeah.
Yes, and, she's the Belgian lady, right?
Yeah. She's got quite, you know, written a book and talked about her life and experiences within all of that. But she's trying to help other survivors specifically from that, those kind of groups specifically. Yeah, look, it's out there, and I think awareness and conversations like this, we have to start normalizing these conversations. The more we talk about it, the more we're likely to at least shine some light on it. The more of us that are prepared to speak about it, and I think it's really important that we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book, Flight Path to Healing, because you've written a book as well, Flight Path to Healing. And
yes.
we've putting the link in the description below. So I think there we go. There's the book. It looks beautiful. Tell us a bit about the book. What is it about?
I'm really proud of it. It's Flight Path to Healing. It's a guide for child sexual abuse survivors, or CSA survivors. And it's actually it's written from one survivor to another. Basically, it looks at what we go through and the things that help us to heal. So again, I'm talking about what worked for me. So each chapter has a different theme. The chapters have at the end of them exercises to do and mantras. So I'll share one with you. So these are perforated. They can be taken out of the book and put
Oh,
on a
wow.
fridge or a
Oh,
in a
nice.
car. Yeah. And so we basically we have a flight path through the book, and the survivor ends up with their own passport, and they're ready to get on the plane. But it's there's lots of healing modalities and ideas and things for survivors to try. And I feel like I was actually guided to write this book because I just knew what to say. And also, Chantelle, I've been asked many, many times, how on earth did you get through this and come out to be the person that you are? And so that's kind of all in the healing process as well. So I'm very excited. It's in paperback, it's e-book, and it's also the audio book. Which
Yeah, I was about to ask you because we were chatting just off air before
yes.
we started that you did the audiobook as well. So is that available yet?
Well, I just did that yesterday. It'll be available probably in another week. But people sometimes just like to listen as opposed to read.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually, I find when driving long distances, that's where I discovered audiobooks, I have to say. Or was
Yes.
it Audible
Yeah.
at the time? No,
Yes.
audiobooks, yeah. I think it was called Audible or something like
Yes, it
that.
was.
Amazon's audiobook section. And I've got to say, especially driving, I much prefer either having silence or listening to an audiobook, something like this. It just makes that trip go so much quicker. So
Doesn't
that's
it?
wonderful. Congratulations for that, because I think that
Well,
is amazing to have
yeah.
that on audiobook as well. It is so, 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 so important to do that, I think,
Thank you.
and to share your knowledge and everything. And I know if we're looking at the time, we're just about out of time here, but not sure if there's anything you would still maybe like to share with our audience or, just end up on.
Well, I guess that you're not alone out there, and I see you, and I stand beside you, and I believe you. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, we really do. And I think that's such an important thing to know, is that just for survivors to know, as you're coming out of it and as you start having these horrific memories, and I know that a lot of the stuff that we speak about on these shows is triggering for certain people. Um, and I want to just say that if you are one of these people who finds these conversations is triggering you and you're not sure why, chances are pretty high that something is hiding inside of you. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And then I want to say that maybe that would be a good time to reach out and just see what wants to come out. Because in order for us to heal, we can't sugarcoat and band-aid and candy coat things anymore. We have to go in and lance that boil and take off that scab that's covering that infected wound. It's the only way we're going to authentically heal. And as we know, healing in the moment is quite raw, it's painful. But there's something so liberating about releasing that pain. And even though the pain is there, there's that beautiful sense of peacefulness, strength, support that is just there. Spiritually, it's just there and it's holding you through the process. And when I think we go through that journey with that understanding that there is someone there that can help me, and help is on the way, all I have to do is open my eyes and look around and see that it's there and reach out. It's so important to reach out. And again, I want to say, although it is important to reach out, it's very difficult to reach out, especially if you've never reached out before, and especially if you've been marred with shame and guilt and stuff like that, which is what you would have been conditioned to do if you've been subjected to any kind of sexual abuse as a child. You would have been conditioned to feel ashamed and guilty and humiliated and not want to reach out. And that's what I want to say to friends, family of people that are remembering and recalling these memories, is when someone starts behaving in a very strange way suddenly, or out of character, or just grumpy and irritable and nasty, and for time, I'm not talking once or twice, we can all have a grumpy day, but if you notice that this is a consistent thing, maybe reach out to that person, ask them if everything is okay, can you help, whatever, go in there. There's generally something wrong. And what I'm finding now, a lot of people are starting to remember and they don't know what to do with these memories. So it could well be something like that as well. So just for those of us who haven't experienced these horrors, just to also provide that space of understanding. You might not be professional, but just your kindness can be there for that person when they're coming out of these things.
A good question is, what do you need?
Yeah.
How can I help? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. What do you need?
Yeah. Survivors need choice. But anyway, thank you so much. Thank you.
It's been lovely, Gloria, and I'd love to have you back on again sometime in the future, and we can talk more about the healing aspect of your journey. Maybe look at some stuff, offering some survivors more tools and tips and tools. As I like to say, we can never have too many of those. You can always discard those that don't work for you, but you never know when there's going to be something that works for you, and it might just be the thing that you need. So thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you for taking the time to watch us and support our channel and our amazing overcomers. That I just love your bravery. And thank you so much for everyone here that supports everyone on their journey. And it's so cool to have you as part of our tribe. That's for sure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you all. And if you haven't already, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram. Our Twitter account has been suspended. So Mornay has put, I know Mornay, who's just a whiz with this. He started a new one, so you're going to find a new Twitter account if you haven't followed us in the last 3 or 4 days. I know it's been in the recent few days. And on Facebook and on Telegram, we're there. Mornay's got the links below. Cool. Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you very, very soon again. Cherry buys.